The Lord of the Rings universe
Change that music, guys. Make sure I'm unmuting. Well, hello and welcome in, everybody, to whatever this is. Is this entertainment news, Stephen? I don't know. I'm your host anyway. My name is Jonathan C. Walsh, just Jonathan or John to everyone else out there on the Tinterweb. I'm your host for the night, and obviously to the right of me, left of me, sorry, maybe you're right, depending on your orientation and how you're watching this, is Stephen. Steve and John McLaughlin. He's the co-host on the show tonight. John Mackay. Steve, we're going to be discussing a variety of different things on this here stream tonight. Obviously starting off with news regards the Lord of the Rings, the Hunt for Gollum. I think it was actually a brilliant little video that you happened across on YouTube. Sent it over to me. Basically, the guy was theorising how we could bring all of the original actors back from, obviously, the Lord of the Rings trilogy from now on 20 or 25 years ago now. Pitfalls of all the different choices and whether it can work. And that's how we're kind of wording the show. Can it be done? Can they succeed? Can the OG actors come back, the original actors come back? And just general discussion, Stephen, about this, because it's like we're both massive Lord of the Rings fans. I bought a fucking Gandalf painting. It's one of 200 paintings I've got. It's up on the wall next to me. I've got all the Tolkien books, and you know, I'm just going to get a little dig in at the moment because we're getting some amount of comments on this Chava reactions, really sarky and bitchy fucking comments from certain individuals calling us cheap and typical white people and all this crap. Really getting their heckles up about a innocent little reaction. We praised the film, we praised the trailer. I says it looked epic. It looked as though it was based on a historical biopic kind of thing. Obviously, I don't know the exact history because I'm not from India. I barely know history going back 200 years in Scotland. But just a lot of people making sarky comments, and it's fucking strange to me. I'm not going to lie. Really strange. We praised the movie.
I think in terms of anyone getting to watch that afresh who can understand this, will know that we praised that trailer. It was a very good, well put together trailer, and I don't think we said anything negative at all. I think someone picked us up wrong.
It was me. Yeah, they picked me up, yeah. Oh, I've lost your audio. I hope that's not something that's actually in the stream. Need to check that. Yeah. I can hear you now though, Stephen, so perhaps it was just on my end. I'll just turn the speakers up again. But no, Stephen, the reason I mentioned that was obviously me getting back my personal experience 20 years ago, 25 years ago, whenever the first Lord of the Rings was a thing. I think it was 2001, Fellowship of the Ring. I watched that movie for the first time. I'd never read a Tolkien Lord of the Rings novel to that point. I then reverse engineered and went back and read all the books because I was inspired by what I was seeing from Peter Jackson, from Viggo Mortensen, Ian McKellen, all the great actors that were involved, Sean Bean, Orlando Bloom. And it's similar with this. People need to get off the fucking high horses at times and realise that we're reacting. We are foreigners. I've got 2% Indian ancestry. I don't know anything about this story. So I'm watching this, I'm discovering and perhaps being inspired by the story. Then I can get back and find out about this guy. You've got to have a bit of come and go with people. So yeah, I just thought I'd get that off my chest. We've had some amount of ridiculous comments, and I called one out. I called it out as being racist. I'm sorry, I did.
We do our best to get into each and every trailer, regardless of where it is in the world, not knowing anything. So we're getting into it afresh, without any sort of expectations from our end, and just letting it flow. And you get an honest reaction that way. If you don't know what's going to happen and you're not expecting anything, we could have really sort of dived deep right into the history of this figure and read up on it, prepared ourselves for that trailer, and then perhaps maybe would have been left disappointed.
Exactly.
Well, such thing that happened in the this tale, this story. Where's that? I didn't see that in the trailer. You know, you've got to draw a line somewhere. I'd rather again just not know too much about what I'm going in to see. That's the best trailer reactions, and we've been commended for our honesty through the 5 years we've been doing this, John.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to do that. I'm not going to start reading. People have to understand MBE stands for Movie Burner Entertainment. We're coming in from an entertainment point of view. We're coming in film lovers, not historians. And that goes across the board, not just Indian content, but Western content as well. He mentions Gladiator. I didn't even like Gladiator, to be honest with you. I wasn't a big fan of it.
I loved the first one. I did love the first one.
Second one, that's just not my kind of film. I'm not into it at all. So, a bad example, but I think it's just something that's been lost in translation, to be honest with you.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Stephen, there's always creative license involved in these kind of things, and obviously going back to Lord of the Rings, that's something we've seen with Peter Jackson, the omission of Tom Bombadil and lots of other facets in the novels. And that's good because that means you can have both at the same time. Likewise with this kind of thing, if you're someone discovering this historical figure for the first time, you can go back and discover the story in its fullest form after you've perhaps watched the film. But yeah, just ridiculous really, some of the comments we've been getting. I usually let it flow over me like water, but some of them have been absolutely outrageous, really. Fucking typical white people and all that. Bringing race in is just ridiculous to me. It's something I'm not going to tolerate. I wouldn't tolerate it if it was a white person going after a black or an Indian person. I'm not going to tolerate likewise, vice versa. So we'll call that out. That's something we always get throughout the channel. Honesty in the comments section, honesty in the actual videos. I'm a very straight-laced individual. But look, Stephen, what is your thoughts, getting away from that, what is your thoughts on this Hunt for Gollum situation? Obviously it's 2026, is the audio all right? Is it sounding fine?
Sounding like I'm in a submarine, John. I don't
Do
know
you?
what's going on. Yeah.
You sound good to me, I can hear you through the speakers. I just hope that's not something that's...
It's a playback thing on the actual...
Because I've only unmuted your audio, which is obviously coming through Discord. You know what, Stephen? I'll tell you what I'll do here, right?
Playback on while I talk, you'll know what I mean.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to... What I'll do is I'll copy, because it may be an issue with this here. You may be coming through the speakers. I may have to fucking manually copy the Discord audio, which is a pain in the arse, into the scene. And hopefully if you speak now...
Yeah, John...
That'll be it now.
I'm going to answer your question anyway, because talking about, obviously, this film... you know, when... I think we might have covered it on a news show, maybe in the last 6 months or something like that, and I think we weren't really sure the format of it. We knew that obviously Andy Serkis was involved. We knew he would be directing. And two of the producers from Wingnut Films was going to be involved. Since then, obviously, Peter Jackson has attached himself as a producer rather than director now.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, the film's supposed to be coming out next year, which is a strange one because if you go into IMDb, the only person cast for this film is Andy Serkis. This brought up the sort of video that both you and I have been referring to, can the Hunt for Gollum succeed based on casting. That's the angle that we're going for here. Because this video was dedicated to OG actors are very keen to sign up for this. Viggo Mortensen, Orlando Bloom being another one. And Sir Ian McKellen. I know that Viggo distanced himself. I think he was asked back for the Hobbit trilogy back 10, 12 years ago, and he declined because he knew that his character did not feature in the book, and Legolas didn't either, but it didn't stop Orlando Bloom. But this is somewhere. It's sort of in between the Fellowship of the Ring, as I believe this story, and there has been some fan theories in the comment section regarding this video as well, which I found very interesting. But it all comes down to recasting or reappointing the original actors and aging them, and that's where the debate lies. Is it best to recast, or is it best to cast the original actors but de-age them, because they're all 20 years older? And we saw the de-aging has come on leaps and bounds since X-Men: The Last Stand. We all know that terrible sequence involving Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. I think they were going to Jean Grey's house back in the old days, and both of their faces looked very porcelain looking. It was weird. It was just very jarring. And I know we've come on a long way since then. Rogue One, Indiana Jones, the last one, and so on. But I don't know if we're still not quite there yet with that de-aging. Some of the de-aging for Harrison Ford in the Indiana Jones film still looked a bit weird. And that's only small scenes. That's the concern. As much as I want to see Ian McKellen back, Viggo Mortensen, etc., I don't want to see that sort of level of quality, because it will be distracting. People sometimes say it doesn't matter. It's only visuals. It's what the story's about. That's the other thing you've got to consider. Is, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, John,
but I'm pretty sure that this story
I
was
lost the audio again. Is it on my end?
It was a short story.
It was on my end. Yeah.
You know, it was based on obviously Tolkien's short story, which I think there was a fan made one made quite a while ago for YouTube, which was 45 minutes long, which everyone agreed was enough. Now, knowing Peter Jackson and what he did with The Hobbit, which was supposed to be a duology, he extended it out to a trilogy, which a lot of people just did not like. I didn't mind it, but I think it would have been better as two films.
I didn't mind it because it explored Dol Guldur. I think that's how you say it, Dol Guldur. Obviously, Muckwood and the shadowy sort of necromancer who was having this bad influence in the forest and corrupting things and bringing bad vibes, if you'd like, to Muckwood. Never really says it. I've sorted the audio, by the way. I didn't have the Discord set up in that scene and I had to check it to merge all the tracks together. So what was happening was you were coming through my speakers. That's why you sounded like you were in a fucking can of Coke or something when you were talking. Hopefully the audio's set sound now. But yeah, I didn't mind that, Stephen, the expanding out of the Hobbit story, because it did allow us to see what Gandalf was doing during the story. Because if you read the actual novel, it's a great novel. It's a kid's story, as you alluded to. But it focuses on Bilbo and the dwarfs go to the Lonely Mountain to face up against Smaug and reclaim what was theirs. There's a lot of different themes explored, the likes of greed and how that can corrupt people and power. Years, 50, 60, 70, 80 years prior to The Lord of the Rings, he's exploring these themes of greed and corruption and power and how it can take the best of people and turn them into something completely different, if you'd like. Thorin Oakenshield's the example. But likewise, how power and adulation with Bard, I think I always forget his fucking name, the one that slayed the dragon, how it can bring the best out. Yeah, I mean, he's been exploring those themes, but in the actual novel, you don't see Gandalf for half the novel. He disappears at the entrance of Muckwood and ain't seen again until the end, when he pops up at the Lonely Mountain before the Battle of the Five Armies. So I didn't mind that. There was elements of the story I wasn't massively keen on. Obviously, the whole romance between, I think it was an elven character and one of the dwarfs, and the orcs following them all the way through. That wasn't something that was there. I think it was actual trolls and whatnot from the mountains they disrupted. And also there was goblins involved, and it did culminate in the actual fight at the end, but that was more over sort of control of this wealth and also the Lonely Mountain. But in the movie, it allowed him to explore Gandalf, what he was up to, and show you that the necromancer was actually Sauron, or Sauron, if I can speak properly. So I didn't mind that. That's an example of Peter Jackson taking a story which is a lot shorter and alludes to a lot of things and expanding it out and giving us the full picture, because people can't go and read fucking appendices in an actual movie. You've got to change the story for a different medium. So I don't mind that, but with this, Stephen, it's different. With The Hunt for Gollum, this isn't a story that can be a trilogy. It's maybe a duology at most, probably a 3.5 hour singular movie. That cannot be a trilogy. You can't expand that out.
We covered that in a news show, and you're absolutely right that there was that rumour that it could be made into two films. That's my concern, though. Is there enough content there? The other thing you mentioned, obviously, the Hobbit trilogy and sort of expanding out. I get it from an artistic point of view. I get it from a cinematic universe, if you like, that this has to interlink with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I understood some artistic decisions away from the novels, where to bring Legolas in to connect, certain stories.
I never got that criticism.
I don't really mind that if it's done for those reasons, and it, if you want, obviously, to get the full sort of story, then read the books, I suppose. But in terms of cinema, it has to slightly change. It's just, my concern is there enough of a story there to make this into two films, if that's what he's considering doing? I don't know. I've not read the book, so I can't really comment.
Is there a novel for The Hunt for Gollum? I always thought it was...
It's a short story.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've even read it then. That may be one of the few I've not read. I thought it was just alluding to the conversations that Gandalf had with, might have been Frodo, about where the ring had been. and the dangers he was involved in prior to him telling him, look, you need to leave the Shire because obviously these Nazgûl are coming for you. And it's going to bring darkness and death and destruction to the Shire, so you have to get out of here with this ring. Get to Rivendell. I'm blanking on the name. It's been a while since I've read the books, by the way. I used to read them every year, but it's been a long time. But he told that story of going and searching for Gollum and trying to find where the ring was, and obviously how it ended up, well, where the ring had been and how it ended up in the Shire. And if he'd opened his mouth up to undesirables, if it can get back to Sauron, obviously he discovers it did. But it was brief, and it told of torture, and it told of him and Aragorn going out and trying to find.
That's a worry as well. You know, you're kind of... they're doing that thing, obviously, the Han Solo thing, where they're over-explaining the characters' origins and stuff, and you've got to be careful of that as well. But if this is based on a short story... Listen, I'm not saying it is. I read these comment sections because, you know, and people say it is based on a short story. Whether or not it was written by Tolkien is another thing, I'm not sure. But it really just, my concern is as long as there's enough material there to sort of mine into and create into a film, and then I'm on board, as long as the technology's there as well, to bring in the original actors again. I don't want to see recast. This is the thing. It's been an age-old thing with cinema that certain actors are always going to be linked with certain characters, and they're never going to shake it off, and the character will never shake off the actor either. We've seen it with Luke Skywalker, and we've seen it with Indiana
Jones.
Again,
Stephen, you keep drifting out for some reason. I don't know what that's about. I hope you can be heard in the actual stream, but it's just me.
I'll check it just now, but it's just it's one of those things. I just think in terms of actors, I would rather see Viggo Mortensen back de-aged.
Yeah.
But it's... I'm quite torn by it, because I don't want to see a bad film. I don't want to see visually. I'm talking about. I don't want to see a bad film visually, and if the technology is not quite there, then
there's an easy solution, Stephen, and the solution is to go down the 5 bods route, where you just don't care about the current age of the actors. You say, look, this is set in the past, prior to the Lord of the Rings, and you just fucking let the actors act without all the technical shit show that comes with trying to de-age. The technology's came a long, long way in the last 10, 15, 20 years. I think we are in a better place now. But there is obviously limits. There's limitations, and the human eye, as we explained during that reaction to Chava with the animal, the human eye is always going to pick up imperfections. It's going to see that it's not real, and it'll take some people out the film. For me, watching Rogue One back in the day, I didn't mind the Tarkin stuff. I liked having the character because he was required for the story. So there's always going to be limitations, though.
But saying that, one that springs to mind is obviously the Samuel Jackson character in Captain Marvel, which I think they did really well in terms of facial de-aging. But again, it's body movement. Yeah, that's the key to all this. We saw it in The Irishman; it didn't work. It was really bad in terms of an older person tried to move like a younger person. That's the thing about...
They're in their 80s though, Stephen. That's the only issue. They're a lot fucking older. And no harm to Martin Scorsese.
I'm thinking about, and Viggo Mortensen's in his 60s, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, Viggo Mortensen's 65, I think, and obviously Orlando Bloom and whatnot, they're in their 40s, so... And I think Viggo's always been in unbelievable shape. He's still very athletic. I think he could pull off looking in his 40s, 30s, no problem. Obviously, Ian McKellen's a different story. He fell off a stage recently during a theatre production and injured himself, and obviously his mobility won't be what it was 25, 20 years ago. So you're always going to have that. But I think, and to be fair, you can get around that because the character itself is fucking old. In the novels, let's be honest, he's like a Mire or something, this eternal being. He is very old. And presumably he'll be on horses, and you can do close-up shots of him not really doing action-heavy stuff. I think
so he's behind a beard and a hat.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They can do what they did with I'm blanking on his name now. It's absolutely shocking. Christopher Lee, they could do what they did with him in the Hobbit film. Christopher Lee was very fragile doing those films. He filmed all his scenes in England and superimposed them into those scenes with Galadriel and Gandalf, and it worked for that because it was very short scenes. I don't know how much, obviously, a big player Gandalf is in this story, how many scenes he's there for. So that's a concern. But
he would be probably the lead, because he's the guy that's basically leading this hunt for Gollum, because he's trying to. I presume it's been, like I says, a while since I've read the novel. It's in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings, incidentally, which is just one of the most epic fucking appendices ever constructed by a human. There's literally novels in the appendices, which sums Tolkien up. I mean, he creates these epic fantasy novels.
The comment comes from. It's probably from the appendices rather than it's an isolated short story. It probably is based on that then.
I mean, the Rings of Power TV show, Stephen, was based off the appendices. So it's crazy, and also there's elements from the Unfinished Tales, perhaps, maybe, from Christopher Tolkien, I'm not sure. But certainly in that story, if I recall correctly, he's already spoken to Bilbo and Frodo. Frodo left to go and find out. He also is aware. It may have, is it Bilbo actually? Was it after the party where he discusses with Bilbo and he sees the effect the ring's having on him, his reluctance to give it up, and he tells him, look, put it in there, keep it away. It may have been Frodo, I can't recall. But he has a conversation and he disappears, and it's years and years and years in the novel. He's not seen for years. He's away studying this ring, trying to find out if it is the ring, and obviously tracking its journey and where it came from. And then he realises, he discovers this Gollum figure, and then he starts going down a rabbit hole trying to find him, where he's been, who he's been involved with. That's what basically the whole pretense of the story is. So, yeah, Gandalf's massive in this. So, and Stephen, also when you're using Peter Jackson and you're using Andy Serkis as a director, you're already connecting the worlds we've seen in the films. So you can't have Andy Serkis coming back as a director, presumably playing Gollum again, and not have Ian McKellen or Viggo Mortensen. So you're backing yourself into a corner. You have to use these characters and these actors. So I don't know how they're going to do it.
Some might say that Andy Serkis's character is behind mocap, though, and you could basically because I remember a conversation with Andy Serkis during one of the making of the Hobbit films, where even 10 years ago he said he struggled physically to do that character once again. We're 10 years on again.
Yeah.
So there might perhaps be, doubles that have got to replicate some of the body movements for Andy Serkis, especially with him doing double duty as well. But I think you're right. I think if you're going to tie Andy Serkis, and it's his voice, it's his voice, to that, then you have to bring back the original actors as well. It makes sense to do that. Lee Pace, I think, is the other one, who was one of the elves. Legolas's father, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the Hobbit,
in the Hobbit, yeah. So there's rumours of him coming back as well, but he's younger than me. I think he's about 45 or something like that. So again, he's ages with Orlando Bloom.
They would have had Gollum probably imprisoned, I'd imagine, because he was floating around Muttwood. So yeah, it would make sense. Stephen, that's another thing. I mentioned it briefly when you were talking about Legolas and the blowback from Orlando Bloom being in The Hobbit. Fucking Legolas was there in the novels. He wasn't mentioned personally, but he was there. That was where he was from. That was his father. He was present at the Battle of the Five Armies. He was present during the Hobbit story. I have no issues with bringing a prominent character like that and allowing Orlando Bloom to come back and portray the character. He's much beloved as that role. That's what I think about right away. I don't think of Pirates of the Caribbean. I think of Legolas. And it takes me back to when I was a young teenager, stroke kid, enjoying these films. So I've got no issues bringing guys like that back. I love Orlando. Likewise in this story.
Yeah.
I'm happy for them to bring these actors back, regardless of what direction they want to go. Just clean, raw actors, older, and just let them act like the Five Bloods. Or if they want to de-age, this film, I presume it will be singular, will have a massive budget, man. And I think there's enough interest and respect for Peter Jackson and what he's accomplished with Tolkien's works for it to make probably even break even, if at least if not make a profit, regardless of what route they want to go down. It is a lot of work, man. No, de-aging presumably half a dozen, if not more, characters. You don't really need to have all of the original actors back. That's what I would say. Maybe Legolas, Gandalf, Aragorn. You don't really need to have...
Legolas and Aragorn are so closely knit together, aren't they? You have to have those as a pair. You know, they're old friends. They've got a history behind them as well. And they're part of that story leading up to Fellowship of the Ring as well. So it makes sense to have them in there.
And we've seen Orlando in The Hobbit. He was de-aged to an extent in The Hobbit, and I don't think it was bad. So, I mean, he's not of an age yet where we have to be doing extensive de-aging. And Aragorn was he was grizzled anyway, so I don't think Viggo's aged that horrendously. I think he still looks pretty fucking good for his age, so I don't think... It's really just Ian McKellen, and again, he looked fucking old 25 years ago anyway, so...
Here's the thing, John. I'm going to rhyme off the actual actors that appeared in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Obviously, Gimli is a problem because he is very fucking old now, isn't he? Rhys, what's he called?
Yeah.
Davies?
Yeah, John
Rhys Davies, yeah. He is. He's like 80 now, so that's problematic. I can't see him coming back.
Elijah Wood.
No issues with Elijah coming back. Would he be in it? He probably wouldn't be in the story. I think that would he be in it? See, that's
they could do that thing in The Hobbit where he appeared at the very start.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, just as a cameo thing, you know, just to sort of, you know, you miss it type thing. But
also,
we've obviously talked
not with us anymore, so
yeah. And Sean Bean is obviously Boromir.
Again, I don't know the timeline. He probably would, because I think they were like hybrid Nemorian humans, or men. So he could have been there, but again, you don't have to have him in there.
Yeah.
I don't know how much interactions they had with Gondor, and I don't know. I'd need to go back and read it, but it's not a necessity.
It's not really, you know. And I mean, where do you draw the line? They would bring back Sam. They would bring back Pippin, and
no, I don't
etc.
No,
there's no really need for that other than sort of fan service, wouldn't it? But in terms of obviously, I'm Galadriel.
Galadriel could be in there, yeah. She could be in there, and Kate Blanchett looks incredible. So again, don't have to do a huge amount. Liv Tyler potentially be in there.
One of the best things about the Hobbit film, just going back to Kate Blanchett, was her. She wasn't in it a lot, but the moments she was in it were absolutely outstanding, and you showed this. It showed the sort of full force of her power. Which was incredible. It was some of the standout scenes. I think it might have been in the last one, the Battle of the Five Armies.
Yeah.
Where she just let it rip. I mean, she was absolutely phenomenal. That's down to her performance. But Liv Tyler.
Liv Tyler could be in there, yeah. Obviously, daughter of, blank on his name, Elrond, Hugo Weaving himself.
Hugo as well.
I mean, the elves, I would imagine he'd have liaised with Rivendell. He'd have been there. They've got extensive sort of archives and knowledge of shifty figures, so I can imagine they could come back. Yeah, I don't see that being a problem. Again, Liv's fucking looking unbelievable for her age, man. I keep going back to her. She's like the example to me of someone aging gracefully, but not really Asian either. She's one of those few people, like a Paul Rudd or a Keanu Reeves, who seem to have eternal fucking youth. Minimal de-aging required for her. Minimal. And she still looks unbelievable.
Yeah. And a big character as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, so important
to see that
Aragorn.
relationship between her, obviously between her and Aragorn as well. You want to see, because it's not really established in the Fellowship of the Ring at all. It's not really till, I might be misremembering, but the Two Towers, that's when it sort of started to sort of spend a bit more time.
Yeah, it was brief. They sort of hinted that there was something there, obviously, didn't they, in the history. And he grew up in Rivendell. I'm pretty sure he spent a large part of his childhood there, mixing and mingling with the elves. And then obviously he had the respect of Elrond because he ultimately marries her. I think there was always that conflict though. They didn't really want marrying a mortal.
Just come back to the sort of purpose of this film, and will it have any effect on obviously the original trilogy?
Well, that was the point I was going to make. It's dangerous dabbling with this kind of thing because of the.
I love the way that Gollum was introduced in the films. They didn't know, they didn't show him It wasn't very visible, and I don't think it was until Gandalf said to, I'm trying to remember who he was saying it to. It might have been Elijah Wood. I'm not sure. Ian McKellen saying to Elijah Wood, "We're not alone" or something like that. Aragorn, I can't remember who it was, but someone said it. It might have been Aragorn actually. It might have been Viggo Mortensen that said it to Frodo. We're not alone, and I was like, oh, is this Gollum he's talking about? And I love that. I love that sort of very evasive sort of introduction. So that would be taken away, I think. Obviously, putting this film in just before the Fellowship of the Ring as well, but it's not a big thing. It's not going to change anything, but it's just little things like that.
I mean,
I love that. A New Hope. This, the Emperor has just dissolved the Senate. And what do you mean? We don't know who the Emperor is. We don't know. We've never seen the Senate. It's not till the prequels you get all that, but it was just little lines like that. It just made that film so special. The detail.
And also, Rogue One, Stephen's an example of you filling in gaps, and if anything, it enhances A New Hope, because you then get to see why Vader's so angered and why they're in such a rush to get these plans and whatnot, and obviously bring down the Empire. It adds depth and importance to it, because the spies all of a sudden aren't just throwaway. The boffin spies, was it? They're not just throwaway, like, nondescript characters in the screen crawl. They're actual living...
Vader's urgent.
Yeah.
As well. When you watch A New Hope, if you're back in 1977 watching A New Hope, and the first time you see Vader is when he comes through that corridor, and you're thinking, this guy's in a rush for something, he's really irate about something. We don't know yet what it is, but we obviously, as the film goes on, we get why he's like that. But
Try to assault my dog, sorry.
Rogue One does enhance that experience, because it just bleeds right into that sort of pacing of the opening sort of scenes of A New Hope. So it could work, you're absolutely right.
The pitfalls, though, Stephen, are obviously that if it isn't successful and it leaves a bad taste in fans' mouths, the natural connection with the original movies, the original cast coming back, it can sully those movies for a lot of people. I think this is different, though, to Star Wars, in the sense that it's not bleeding seamlessly into the main story, it's just an element of the story. Gollum, who's connected to the original trilogy, the ring and where it went to, and obviously how that brings Sauron's gaze onto the Shire.
How that was discussed. Yeah.
I don't think it'd have any long-lasting effects on the original sort of trilogy of movies if it was to flop. And I think the chances of a movie of this ilk flopping with Peter Jackson, the respect he has and the team around him, and how they're always in the sort of sharp end of pioneering and technology and film, I think he'll get it right. I think he'd put a lot of time, he'd take his time. I'd be surprised if this comes out next year, I'm not going to lie. I'd imagine, much like the Beatles stuff, he'd want to get it absolutely spot on, the technology, make sure if they are de-aging, that it's not taking multiple people out of the movie. And obviously with Serkis involved, we've seen him doing second unit directing, I think, in The Hobbit. We know this guy knows how to direct, he knows how to act. You put that combination together, it's magic. I can't see these movies not succeeding. I think it will be successful. I think it will be fucking epic in terms of technical work. And again, this guy is a guy we're talking about who breathed new life into World War I footage, which was jerky and disconnected and inhumane, or inhuman. And with this technology he utilised, it brought humanity to stock footage, and he filled in little gaps in the film and whatnot.
I think this is where the AI learning, is it the MAL system they call it?
Yeah.
I think this is where this could be utilised. I don't think it's going to be deep faked. I don't think it's this traditional de-aging that we've seen, like with Tony Stark. Obviously Robert Downey Jr. for certain small scenes. I think that this MAL system could play a big part in it. Maybe the AI can read faces and obviously read data from previous photographs and films.
That's the other thing, Stephen, AI.
They've got that to mine into. They've got the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers and the Return of the King to mine into, to reproduce the actors' faces and be able to layer that onto the actual performance of the actor as well. So
yeah, is the other thing, Stephen, you're right. That's the sort of unknown quantity, if you'd like. I sent you a video, I don't know if you've seen it, Stephen. I was was a Star Wars related thing with Count Dooku. It's all AI. It's
absolutely
fucking brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. The way that Palpatine is manipulating and breaks the news that Qui-Gon's died. Your former apprentice is gone. He's no more. And you could see the anguish and the pain. That's all AI. So if you marry that with actual human performances, with a mixture of de-aging, it could be something special. It could be pioneer.
That was missing from the prequel trilogy, and I'm not a prequel basher by any means, John, as you know. It had a lot of good things that happened in there. It was more of a visual sort of cluster F, if you like, in terms of the technology just wasn't at that point to utilise it, but and some of the dialogue was pretty ropey, but it was little things like that should have been included, you know. And Ryan Johnson replicated those missed chances as well with Luke discovering Han's death. They filmed the scene, we saw it obviously in the sort of bonus stuff, but they never included it in the actual main film. That, what you sent over from Dooku, would have made sense. He had a connection. He was his Padawan, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So to lose his Padawan, there would have been anguish there, regardless of him being, you know, turning to the dark side at that point. It would still have had that connection. There'd have been, the conflict would have been there. That's what the original trilogy was about. It was about emotionals, family ties, conflict between good and evil, or dark and light,
and the manipulation of this Phantom Menace, if you like, and obviously Chief Palpatine. Stephen, isn't an example of the sort of yin to the yang of Peter Jackson, where Peter gets criticised for extending things out. Admitting with Tom Bombadil, but I never had an issue with that. Tom Bombadil was a fucking joke character to me. I hated that character.
In this film, though, John?
And what? Sorry, I didn't hear you. If you can
would the Tom Bombadil stuff be included in this Hunt For Gollum? Would it be round about that?
I don't know if he spoke to him. He's a very ancient being. I suppose he could have been around at that point, but I wouldn't be in favour of it. I just thought he was fucking. I hated the cat. I hate that whole part of the book. When I read it,
I think the words you used was a boring bastard.
He's boring and he's singing, and it just felt out of sync with the rest of the novel. It's just the tone was weird. You've got this ever-darkening world where sort of you can feel the life bleeding out of the world because Sauron's influence is starting to grow and grow and grow away from Mordor, and obviously of Gilead and all of that, and Gondor, out and out further. And then you've got the fucking hobbits singing about and drinking like elderflower, what fucking juice and shit. It's just rubbish. I'm like, get that to fuck. It was the correct decision to admit that. But the point I was making was that's where you see the yin to the yang, Stephen. Peter gets criticised, as if I know him personally, for obviously expanding out the Hobbit and showing us what Gandalf was getting up to with obviously Galadriel and whatnot and Dol Guldur. The yang to that is obviously George Lucas speeding through things because he's not got a source material and rushing things and trying to fucking cram so much into 3 separate movies. You could have made an entire series of trilogies based on the prequel stories, with obviously Count Dooku and the great Christopher Lee being the prime example. You're trying to force so many different villainous characters in. Darth Maul, Count Dooku, Vader at the end, turning, obviously the overarching sort of villain that is Sidious. There was so many dropped balls, so many missed opportunities. Rushing through those characters. I loved the Count Dooku character. I loved his interactions during the lightsaber duels, his knowledge of the different forms, and the way he would taunt Anakin. You could have dedicated an entire movie, minimum, to that character, and him being manipulated prior to Anakin. And then when you see, obviously, Sidious coming in and doing the same thing with Anakin, you can see all the telltale signs of what he's doing and how he's pushing his buttons and trying to bring him over to the dark side. There were so many missed opportunities with those characters.
It's just this mindset of having, it needs to be a trilogy, you know, it has to be a trilogy, and I think that was just the sort of mindset for the day, wasn't it? The original trilogy was a success because it was a trilogy. No, it wasn't. It was because it was a well put together story spread over 3 films. But that's not to say that you have to keep doing that. You're absolutely right, John. They could have really went back. I get in those days.
Grievous as well, Stephen. That was the other one. Fuck, Grievous.
It took 3 years. It took 3 years, didn't it, per film?
Yeah.
From start to finish to do that. And I get, obviously, at that point, George would have been in his 60s, early 60s. So he probably was considering, I've not got a lot of time, but that's where he didn't want to relinquish control. He could have brought in directors like Peter Jackson, say, to do a Star Wars film.
But I remember us, Stephen, at the time, saying even at the time, obviously there was criticisms of Gungans and Jar Jar Binks and all that shit. I know we're going off piste here, but it connects in anyway, because we're talking about using de-aging and AI and how you could have done stories really well. And you can also, there's a potential for it with the utilisation of AI, but it doesn't have to connect in. I'm not even going to try and justify it. Fuck it. We criticised Lucas and obviously the decision to kill off Dooku and bring in characters like Grievous to replace him. Grievous was a horrible character, shite, superficial character to sell obviously merchandise and to tailor to younger demographics who would have been more connected to that kind of fluffy, fucking multi-armed, wielding 6-7 lightsabers kind of character, as opposed to sticking with Christopher Lee and keeping him as a sort of major villain running through. We criticised it at the time. I remember criticising that decision. It was too filled with many villains instead of just keeping one or two really excellent ones. Even Maul. I mean, Maul was a great villain, but he didn't have the legs or the longevity of a Count Dooku. They really did drop the ball with it. Oh, he didn't have anything. Yeah, he was half and fucking two. And then he came back as a sort of mechanical fucking half, whatever the hell he is. But no, Steve, look, I think this can work, man. I really do. I think there's a lot of scope with these great minds involved behind the camera. And obviously, the interest is there for the original actors to come back. These are great actors, people who have won multiple awards, and certainly in Viggo Mortensen's case, always getting fucking banded around for potential Academy Awards when you get to this time in the year. So if these guys are connected to it and they've got even a sniff of the script at this point, then there must be something special there if they want to come back. These are guys that have had mega successful careers over multiple decades. They don't have to do this. So there must be something there. There must be potential. And technically, I think whilst we're still limited, I do think we're in a bit of a sort of nearly breaching the singularity, if you'd like to use a sort of cosmic term. Thinking of black holes and whatnot. That's the way they talk with AI and technology. When you go past the singularity, the world changes forever. We're getting closer and closer to that, I think, with AI and how it's revolutionising art and what you can do in a video sense. So I do think that de-aging, and fuck knows, don't get the people who were involved with Marvel involved, and great performances from Viggo and Orlando and guys like that, we could have something special. We're a million miles away from Rogue One, where we were then, and we were all, I remember being fucking awed by Rogue One. I'm like, oh my God, that's Tarkin. You look back now, it looked like a video game. It looked terrible. We're a million miles away from that now. We're just revolutionising at an unbelievable rate. Everything's getting better and better and better all the time. But I digress. We're going to move on to the next topic. Steve, you want to move on? Have we done that? I'm fucking terrible at trying to cut these up for videos. I suppose this isn't going to get cut up for a topic, so I'm not even going to bother my arse. Just to see if you've got anything to say about the Hunt for Gollum. Whether you think it can succeed or not. How do you think they should do it? Should they bring the OG actors back? Can they de-age it for an entire movie? Should it be a trilogy? Anything you want to share about the Hunt for Gollum, put it down below in the comments section. That's the place to put your thoughts. I'm sure we'll get back to you as long as you're not argy and sarcastic and a bit twattish like some of the people who've been commenting over the last couple of days. Let's move on though, Stephen. Spielberg, E.T. sequels, him blocking it. Not something I was aware of, but you did send me over and I'm aware of it now. I have to say, I'm glad they made this hard-fought victory. I'm glad they stepped in and blocked this. This would have been a disaster, Stephen. I mean, why even try to make an E.T. sequel? The whole point was it was a singular story about this alien who was stuck on fucking an alien world and was trying to get back home.
Johnny did write a book called The Green Planet, which was going to take place on E.T.'s home.
I mean, that could have worked, to be fair. Yeah, that could have worked.
Yeah, but it's like the whole micro universe thing that Lucas was talking about. Would it work on film? That's, as a book, I think it's okay, but I don't know. We'll never know if it will work or not. But you're absolutely right, John. This was the quote that Steven Spielberg actually said. I think it was Entertainment Tonight. He was talking to her. The Hollywood Reporter. But he said
that was a real hard fought victory because I didn't have any rights before E.T. I had some rights. but it didn't have a lot of rights. It kind of didn't have what we call the freeze, where you can stop the studio from making a sequel because you control the freeze on the sequels, remakes, and other ancillary uses of the IP. I didn't have that. I got it after E.T. because of its success. I just did not want to make a sequel. I flirted with it for a little bit, just a little bit, to see if I could think of a story. And the only thing I could think about was a book that was written by somebody that wrote the book for it called The Green Planet. So it wasn't Spielberg, it was someone that wrote it, which was all going to take place at E.T.'s home. We were all going to be able to go to E.T.'s home and see how E.T. lived. But it was better as a novel than I think
Yeah.
it would have been. I agree with that, John.
Yeah.
The thing you talked about, freeze, classic example of that
is Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis hold those IP rights to Back to the Future, stopping studios going forward with a Back to the Future 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever they want to do to make lots of money, remakes, etc. As long as they hold the rights to that, it can never be done, and that's the way it should always be with films. Certainly films
I wish it was like that with Home Alone.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, should have ended it too.
Yeah.
Sadly, we've got 4. Think.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what Chris Columbus, wasn't it? I don't know.
Chris
I
is
don't know
a phenomenal director, by the way. See, when you think of him and the movies he was involved in, first 2 Harry Potter movies, just a real magical touch that guy has, an ability to work with young actors and get brilliant performances. That guy is genius, an absolute fucking genius level director. Everything, it's like those great names from a bygone era you think of, the likes of, I'm always blanking his name, John, worked in the likes of the... John Hughes, all those great 80s movies that he had his hands all over, fingerprints all over. You think of guys like that, they're just genius. You don't have people like that now. You really don't, and I don't know why, but you don't.
John Hughes, actually, he was involved in Home Alone, wasn't he? I think he was one of the writers. Exactly. And I think, I don't know what the deal was with Home Alone, to be fair, but it might have just been that perhaps maybe the rights weren't there for Christopher Columbus to execute. I'm not really sure. In terms of obviously E.T., I think Spielberg had held all the cards because it was an unknown quantity at that point when he obviously signed up to make the film, and obviously held the cards to, if it is a success, then I'll decide where we carry it forward, not the studio. And I'm glad they did, because I wouldn't have not liked to have seen E.T. It's a standalone film. It's like the Goonies. Well, I know we're going to talk about that as well, John, and Gremlins.
Yeah.
To an extent, but in terms of E.T., I think it served its purpose. It told a story, and I don't think you can take it anywhere else. It's just one of those stories. It's a very isolated narrative, and it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And
it's an example, Steve, of a great standalone movie, a self-contained story that works, and there's no necessity to expand it out into a duology or a trilogy. And it's from a bygone era where Hollywood would greenlight movies like that and then not force the director or the producers or maybe even another director to come in and make a remake or a sequel.
You take away the sort of alien, and you take away all the other stuff about the chase for the alien and stuff like that. It's about personal growth with the main characters. The kids in that instance, E.T., the kids, Elliot, blanked on the brother's name, and Gertie.
What a name.
It was their growth. Obviously they're living with their mother. I think that she was a single parent, and it's just seen that growth in those kids. Same with the Goonies. It was about personal growth for each and individual Goonie, and the sort of chase for the treasure was part of the journey. But with you take an E.T. sequel, where do you go with it? Because the heart and soul of it was the kids. It wasn't just E.T., it was the kids that made it special. You make a sequel on the home planet, the kids aren't going to be in it.
Exactly. And then you're left with this stubby little alien and other stubby little aliens. Then you're confronted with the problem that Disney have with Grogu, where you've got this little fucking puppet that just, you're having to float in the air to make it look like it's doing backflips. Or when he's with Luke, Luke's using the Force to pull him along with him while he's talking to him. You've got a whole new problem. The biggest problem, Steve, with these kind of films, though, is that aesthetically, they're very much of a time and they work. And there's a magical element. Even that other one that you've seen, I've not seen it either. There was another one from that era where it's the posters, like a kid, I think, sat in like it's like a seat or something. I forget the name of it. But even things like weird science and stuff like that, all these...
Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah, Flight the Navigator, yeah. Films of
like
that era are just a magical element. Even the fucking horror, like action films. I mean, I view RoboCop as like a borderline horror film for younger people like me at the time anyway, watching it. I was terrorised by it, but loved it. It had a vibe, and you just cannot recreate that vibe 20, 30, 40 years later. It's dead. Like I says, they don't have filmmakers like Steven Spielberg and his pomp. They don't have guys like John Hughes. They're gone. There is no originality in Hollywood now. It's fucking deader than a dodo. And you cannot. They've tried to remake the likes of Total Recall and RoboCop and they've failed. That's why I'm glad that Zemeckis has got that freeze sort of option on Back to the Future. Because if they try to remake Back to the Future, it would be shite as well. You just cannot recreate the magic. They can't. They're too obsessed with the fucking technology and green screens. These were all practical films. They were all tangible. The actors were bouncing off of real things. You speak about the Goonies, Steve, and the kids seeing the shit for the first time.
We were talking about, obviously, Lord of the Rings previous to this topic, and it's all to do with the right casting. It's all to do with the chemistry between the actors as well. Back to the Future is a classic example of that. It's one of the reasons it's probably my most favourite film I've ever seen. Is because of the chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, and the chemistry between Crispin Glover and Michael J. Fox.
And even the Biff actor, whose name I forget, he had great chemistry. They all bounced off each other brilliantly. It just worked. It was a perfectly cast movie. But then the characters, the actors at that time, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being nostalgic, but they just seem to have more about them. There was an energy. You think of young actors now, it's really disappointing, man. I mean, it's like Finn Wolfhard, no harm to him, but fucking there's nothing they're lacking. I mean, you, Steve, me reacted to the Goonies. I need to get it out. I've got one part out of 3. I need to get the other 2 parts out. They're all unbelievable actors, man. Every one of them. I mean,
and they all bring something different.
They all bring something different. And they're all
the thing is, you talk about that, John, and as much as I like Tom Holland and I like Zendaya, etc., they're very, very samey in all the roles. I know CINE, one of our good friends from YouTube, is not a fan of Zendaya.
You hear they're getting married, by the way, or engaged. I think it's finally about. They finally let the cat out of the bag. Everyone fucking knew Tom Holland and Zendaya. Wow. Yeah, he's getting engaged. It's just that, you know, I love Tom Holland. I love his interviews. He's a brilliant guy. No, not CINE. He always talks about Zendaya in a weird way, kind of. Sometimes he'll name drop her. Yeah, she makes a great pasta. Then other times he'll say, yeah, my girlfriend or something. It's like, just everyone fucking knows who your girlfriend is, Tom. We know.
It's weird.
You just drop the pretense, mate. Perfect couple, by the way. Both have fucking... It's charisma for an eternity, the two of them. I mean, he's getting the Riz of all Rizzes. He likes to talk about Chalamet being the Riz man. Holland's the Riz man. Let me tell you, he is. Guy's got something. You know who else is the Riz man? Fucking João Felipe Jota, who's re-signed for Celtic. I forgot how charismatic that guy is. His hair is just charisma personified. I was looking at that guy's hair and I'm like, my God. Not many people make me jealous of not having hair anymore. There's very few individuals on earth. Austin Butler's one. Chalamet's one. Jota is another one. But I digress. You've not got that sort of vibrant young group of actors now. There isn't a Corey Feldman. Is it Sean Astin? I always screw his name up. Even a young Josh. Fucking blank on his name. Terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking how do you blank on his name? It's crazy. These guys don't exist now. They just don't. They're just media trained, whitewashed little fucking beige.
John, I was talking about, I noticed it the other week there. I don't know if it was maybe on Screen Rant or one of those places, but there was talk about Goonies 2 is in development and Gremlins 3 is in development.
God. Gremlins is another one, Stephen. I loved the Gremlin movies when I was younger. I was obsessed with them. Again, it's that energy. They just had that energy.
I didn't mind that.
The sequel, I liked Gremlins 2. Yeah, I didn't mind it. But you just can't recreate it. No. You would not be able to create a Gremlins movie. Stephen, the audience isn't there anymore. People have changed. The younger demographics are trying to grow up so quickly. They're desensitised to a whole array of different things via TikTok, social media. they're just not the same as even when I was younger. And I'm not trying to be this sort of grumpy old fucking guy that kids are not the same as when I was young. It's not the same. But I do genuinely believe that my generation, the millennial generation, was the last to play outdoors and stuff like that. Kids are just sitting inside now. They're on iPads or on phones. Just fucking completely different creatures, beasts to when I was younger. And these movies, and even when you were younger, Stephen, these movies were getting made for people like us. They're more cynical now. They're more impatient. They don't connect with these kind of stories anymore. You can't remake these stories, and that's why ultimately they're doomed to fail. Now, I don't know how that other movie got on. There was one get remade, wasn't there? God, what was it? It was the original, was it? It wasn't Tim Burton, was it? I don't think it was. You know what I'm talking about? The one when the fucking house set back, they redesigned the whole house. I've never seen the film. You know what I'm talking about? They done a sequel. Was it Tim Burton?
Beetlejuice.
No, it wasn't Beetlejuice. Oh, that's an example of it actually working, by the way. So I may be talking shite. No, there was another one. It's not the Goonies, it's something like that though. I can't think of it. I've never seen the film. I've never seen it. But I digress. I'd love to know how that panned out. They made a sequel to that. What is it called again? Was the young judge from My Cousin Vinny not in it?
The Munsters.
Did they not make a sequel to The Munsters?
Yeah.
I'd love to know if that's been out and how it's done, because that's another example of something from that era.
Yeah.
Was it The Munsters? I don't know. I don't fucking know. I've lost the plot. 2022. That didn't do well. 55%. Rotten Tomatoes, 4.5. Rob Zombie was the director. It flopped. That's what I'm talking about. You just cannot recreate that magic. They've tried it with the Addams Family. It doesn't work. You just can't remake these kind of movies. There's not the audience for it. You've just not got that vibe in filmmaking anymore. There's no real great, brilliant minds. You're having to go back and go to Steven Spielberg, and I don't think he's in that point of his career now where he wants to be making these kind of films. He's matured and he's a completely different guy now to what he was 40 years ago when he was fresh and dabbling with different things. He's more serious now.
I think perhaps as well that there's more studio interference. I mean, it's always been there, but I think even more so now because their mindset is on how much money they can make now rather than any sort of artistic decision being, executive decision being made. And I think perhaps maybe Spielberg is taking on a different role. Even in his sort of directorial roles, it's different to what it was back then. You mentioned Goonies, John, you mentioned films like that, Back to the Future. Steven Spielberg had a hand in getting these films made, although he didn't direct them. He saw the potential in them. He saw the potential in A New Hope with George Lucas. One of the very few that backed A New Hope or back then it was called Star Wars. He obviously pitched Back to the Future, helping Zemeckis and Gale get that green lit because of the whole creepy mother-son relationship thing that studios like Disney didn't want to touch. Spielberg knew the potential. He saw the future. Pardon the pun. And the same with the Goonies as well. Obviously, it was Richard Dick. I can't remember.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
I'm blanking. Did Superman, obviously. Superman.
Richard Lester. Am I talking about Dick Lester? Is it?
Dick Lester did Superman too. He did Hard Day's Night. It was
Richard, fucking hell. Why am I blanking his name?
Richard Donner.
Fucking hell. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
I had Lester in my head as well. And exactly again, Spielberg was involved as one of the producers because he had a good eye for a good story. And we always connect Spielberg with E.T. and Jaws, etc. But these other films he had a big hand in. And I'll tell you something, John, it'll be a sad day when that man goes.
Yeah.
Because it'll be a big hole in Hollywood when he goes, because he's been so influential for the past 50 odd years in filmmaking, not just behind the camera.
By the way, Stephen, speaking of people who were influential in film, David Lynch passed away and we never really had a chance to speak about that 13 days ago. What a fucking director he was. I've seen a lot of shots with that guy, a brilliant human being. Great filmmaker. I saw him with the
Beatles thing that came out in Disney Plus just before Christmas. He was in that because he was a Beatles fan. I think he was an Elvis fan, and he was curious to see what the Beatles were all about.
It was a great, for sure. 1946 he was born. He has name keep my dog. I don't know what the fuck my dog's doing.
He was involved in the Dune film, wasn't he?
Yeah, Dune from '84. Yeah, also the Elephant Man, Mulholland Drive, films like that. It was just a fucking great director. So it's sad to see he passed away quite young as well for this sort of day and age. 78. Yeah, I mean that's not exactly not old. And what a head of hair he had, by the way. So yeah, I mean that's an example again of what I'm talking about. Just fucking great directors of that era. We've got great directors now. I'm not trying to be disparaging. Again, what is my dog doing? He's fucking under my feet. I'm literally sat at a desk. I've got a pedal board underneath me with about 8-9 pedals, guitar pedals. Where's my dog going? I don't fucking know. He's occupying 2 inches of space just now. He's a 7 stone, he wishes he was 6 stone, 7 stone Labrador, and he's managing to sit in a 2-inch gap.
He hears my voice, that's what it is.
That's what it is, he misses you, Stephen. It's been a while since he's seen you in the flesh. God help you when you finally do. Meet his presence again, if you thought it was bad before. You're not getting fucking sitting down. But Stephen, I'm glad he blocked it. I'm not for trying to remake these kind of films now. And again, it stems back to what we've been talking about time and again. Certainly I spoke about it in solo shows when I did them, remember them? That you get back into them, there's no excuses now. I get set, I can switch on fucking 2 minutes, I'm ready to go. Lack of originality in Hollywood. Yeah. There's no originality. They keep making sequels and remakes and quasi-sequels, fucking spin-offs. What has happened to the great minds? Where has all the creative juices went to?
It's all went into AI, John. Everybody's creativity are all...
Did you see that as well, by the way?
Yes, with creating AI so they can think for us.
Who's the guy that's involved in OpenAI, is it? Is that what the name of it is, OpenAI? Is it fucking Sam Altman? Yeah, Trump gave him, I think, what, 500 billion or some shit like that, did a deal. Chinese have basically taken the concept of OpenAI and recreated it within months. $6 million it cost. And they've basically produced an open source AI that's outperforming OpenAI now. So there you go, there's your dinner. So I mean, look, that's good for us because it means it's not going to the sort of war machine that is the United States. No harm to anyone from America, but your government is a bit warmongery. So is our government, believe me. We're basically the poodles of the United States, so that can only be good for the world that we're getting an open source AI, and again, it helps creative minds. But Steve, I'm not for it. There's no originality in Hollywood. Just stop making these fucking sequels. We've got great self-contained stories from 30, 40 years ago that were left self-contained for that very reason, because they were great singular stories, generational stories. And you don't have to go and keep touching and ruining these things and making sequels and spin-offs just because you can. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you do it. Just leave it in the past. Kill it if you have to, as Kylo Ren said. That's a whole other fucking discussion, Kylo Ren, Jesus Christ, and Star Wars again could go down a rabbit hole with that. Stephen, have you got anything else to say? I'm going to end on this final discussion about the Academy Awards. If you've got anything to say about Spielberg stopping that E.T. sequel, incidentally, put it down below in the comment section, and if you want to share, that's the place to put your thoughts. But moving on, Stephen, to this final topic. Can the Oscars be taken seriously, I've asked? And this is all coming from the news that one Denis Villeneuve, director of Dune 2, or Dune 2, as they say over in the States, has been snubbed for an Academy Award nomination for Best Director. Now, I'm looking at the nominations just now, and directing: Anora, Sean Baker, Brady Corbett, The Brutalist, James Mangold, A Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard, Amelia Perez, Karali Fargeet, The Substance. Now, I've not seen any of those movies, so I can't pass judgment, albeit Amelia Perez is getting fucking destroyed because apparently it's well over hyped and it's not worthy of its 13 nominations. Apparently it's the next Crash, that's what people are saying. It may win big, but it's not going to do well in terms of legacy. People will look back and say it was an absolute carve-up. You can't seriously tell me, Stephen, that Denis Villeneuve is not one of the best 5-6 directors of 2024. because it's a
It's a
fucking
weird one.
nonsense.
Yeah, it's weird, John, because it qualifies in terms of the window
Yep.
for this year's awards, and both you and I went to see the film.
Stephen, I
and
maintain it's an event movie.
It is, yeah.
I put that up there as what, this current youngish or generation's Star Wars. That's the way I view that. That was an event movie you had to go and see. It was fucking epic.
I mean, I know it is nominated for Best Picture though, isn't it? But in terms of directing, and that's what you're obviously talking about, John, I'm looking at those other nominees, and I don't see why he's not there. You know, I'm not saying that these people were not worthy of being nominated either, but I think that would have been a stick on if you'd asked me after we watched that film.
That's the problem, Stephen.
I would have said it's definitely a stick on. He's got to be, the direction of that film. You said, John, not many directors and filmmakers out there could really.
No one can do it.
That to film that sort of source material from a book. It's a very hard thing to do.
Stephen, it was called The Unadaptable Story.
Yeah.
For generations, obviously David Lynch tried to do it. It's got a cult following. Having read half of the first novel, I had to stop. I just couldn't get through the novel. I just wasn't agreeing with Frank Herbert's writing. Wasn't for me. But having watched the first movie, I seen firsthand, even just reading half that novel, how good a job Denis Villeneuve had done adapting the story. I could see things happening before they happened because I'd read the book and I'm like, I recognise this location, I know that act, that character, this is going to happen, and it played out. And the crazy thing is, there wasn't a film that I'd seen, I hadn't seen the original 84 or whatever it was, June, for me to reference. And visually, he captured what I was seeing in my fucking mind reading the book like a year earlier. And he was able to convey it. It was unbelievable what he did with June 1 and June 2.
Experience when that happens. Sometimes, in terms of obviously Lord of the Rings, if you've seen the films before you've read the books, you will automatically link the actors' faces if you're reading the books. But in this case, it's the reverse, where you've read the book, and then when you see that getting played out, obviously the Villeneuve version on screen, it's incredible just how things fall into place. John, I did notice obviously for cinematography, Greg Fraser is nominated for that.
And rightly so. Stephen, it's one of the best movies of the year.
Yeah.
It's an incredible film. It's a triumph technically, story, the adaptation. This deserves to be sweeping the board in terms of nominations. It really does on a technical level. It was one of the best movies of the year. And for Denny to be snubbed, it's an absolute joke.
I think
it comes back to what I said. Sorry?
Production design and sound get nominated as well.
It's got all these nominations, but we're not it's been nominated for Best Picture, but we don't nominate the director who fucking made the picture possible. It was his passion project. He's put blood, sweat and tears into.
We're talking about 5 or 6 nominations in terms of the production side of things, and the sort of most important one's not there. It's a really curious case.
And you know it's not going to win any awards either. They're just putting it in there as a sort of token gesture. It won't win any awards because there's an inherent bias to these kind of films from the Academy, where they get wooed by certain individuals and certain performances. And look, Kate Winslet was taking the piss out of this 10, 15 years ago in Extras, and it's true. There's very particular movies that relate with the Academy, and look, you can say it's 7,000 members and they're all from diverse backgrounds, but if that was the case and there wasn't a bias, you would have seen the likes of Jim Carrey winning for The Truman Show, you'd have seen Adam Sandler getting nominated for Uncut Gems, you'd have seen people who don't normally pop up getting their dues, but they don't because there's a bias. And they admitted it with Adam. He's not a serious actor, they said, or something to that effect. He has to do it over a number of years. What the fuck do you mean? That's not what the Academy Awards is. It's reflecting the best performance.
That one with obviously Will Smith winning a few years ago for obviously King Richard, who for years was a comedy actor. So it's one of those ones where some strange decisions over the years have been made, John. I did notice Kieran Culkin's been obviously nominated for a supporting role. I think it was that film that we watched, the trailer we watched, A Real Pain or something like that, the one he's done with Jesse.
Was that the one where it was, Yeah, was that? God, I remember that. A Real Pain. Yeah, that did look decent. Was that linked to the Another Grandmother? I can't remember what that was about, but yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was like, was it not based on like the Holocaust or something like that? Was there not links to that? And like, am I telling the truth here? Am I talking shite? I can't remember.
I think I must remember. It was more of a sort of light-hearted comedy.
Yeah,
wasn't
maybe
it?
it was. Yeah. Yeah, because Tour Poland to honour their grandmother. I'm pretty sure there was links to that. Anyway.
Yeah, it probably was, John, but I think it was.
It was more light-hearted though, yeah.
Sort of take on it, and just this sort of, I don't want to say buddy movie, because definitely in the trailer they didn't look like they were buddies. They were just kind of putting up with each other, a la Planes, Trains and Automobiles. That's sort of kind of vibe to it, but it's good to see that. But yeah, I mean, for years, John, that's been the case, and I think June Part 2, I should say, has just been put in there just because if it wasn't, people would be like, what the fuck's going on here? You know?
I know.
It might win. It might win one of those. It's not going to sweep the board. So, although I think, just in terms of what it's up against, it probably should.
Again, writing adapted screenplay, you can't put Dune 2 in there for adapting one of the most complicated, dense fucking stories ever put to paper. It probably makes The Lord of the Rings look like a children's novel in comparison. You have to go back and forth and read the appendices and that as well to get the full picture.
There's definitely a game to be played when it comes to the Academy Awards. John, you mentioned Caitlin.
Yeah, there was one.
Although it was said in jest, there is a certain truth to that, and that's the reason certain actors only appear in certain films at certain times. Your Adrian Brody's only appear in a film at the right time. Daniel Day-Lewis will only appear in the film at the right time, and the same with directors as well. They all know how to play the game. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be based on, timing and it ticks certain boxes and stuff like that. It should be down to artistic performance in terms of behind the camera and in front of the camera, and all the other elements that are put in there as well in terms of production. But you mentioned something, John, off camera. I don't know if you want to mention it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the actress, but there was an actress who...
If you want to talk about it, we can leave the
I'm happy
actress.
to talk about it, yeah. There was an actress, I forget what her name was, who was pushing her own campaign to get nominated, and there was a lot of controversy because that's not usually the way that you go about getting nominated for an Oscar, but she was getting funding and a lot of support from sort of independent actors and whatnot, and there was controversy surrounding her being pushed forward over other individuals, and I think it just, again, shows you what a fucking farce the whole thing is. It's about funding and money and influence. It's not about the best performance. It never has been, really. Usually they do get it right eventually, though, in terms of the winners. I think few people would argue with Cillian Murphy winning, Robert Downey Jr. winning previous years. I'd argued that Butler probably deserved over Fraser, but it was Fraser. Brendan Fraser.
Brendan, yeah.
Who can deny Brendan that? I mean, the comeback story and whatnot, I mean, he's a great guy, so I wasn't going to be too butthurt, but Austin is Elvis. Usually they do get it right eventually, but there's sometimes you just get snubs and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And then that story we were talking about, what is that?
Comment.
A comment? Yeah, seen that. Hey, can you talk about indie movies? There's no real news that I can think of at the moment that's really dropped that we can talk about. I'm not entirely sure if there's been any.
Last week we talked about, obviously,
Saif Ali Khan, yeah, and obviously what happened to him, which was shocking. But I don't know of any news that's worth speaking about.
We kind of just sort of do it week about, don't we? We'll cover some Indian news one week, and then we'll do some Western news the following week.
Yeah, we try not to force it, Stephen, because we eventually do get criticised anyway if we keep doing Indian-related content. You can't really win because people will just come out and say, look at them, they're just trying to get views, which has always been a nonsense comment for me anyway, because there's not one person on YouTube or any platform of this nature not want to get people watching them. If you're putting video content out and you're going out your way to do thumbnails and stuff like that, and you don't get views, then what the fuck are you doing, really? It's a bit of a waste of time. So you can't really win. But we try to cover. If there's anything big comes up, then we'll cover it usually, because that's what we're about. We're about discussing movie news and entertainment news. And obviously we're big fans of Indian content, TV shows and whatnot, but I don't think there's anything major that's catching my eye, to be honest with you. But getting back to that, Stephen, you said it yourself, you don't even watch the Oscars now. I don't know if you ever did.
Yeah, I used to, John, but even in terms of our YouTube channel, that's what we're talking about just now would have been a headline for us. It would have been the sort of the main thing we would be talking about on a show at this time of the year. And now it's the third topic. So it shows you how much it's in terms of priorities with ourselves that we're not as interested or as passionate for the Academy Awards as we once were.
I don't think it can be taken seriously. When you're admitting a guy like Denis and what he's done, how important he is, getting people back into cinemas after the pandemic as well, or during the pandemic for the first movie, when I went and seen the film in a theatre. Yeah. And I know people like to whitewash the pandemic now and say it wasn't real and all that. It fucking was real. We had it. That's a nonsense. That's Musk shite.
We had it before there was a vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, I love this shite from these fucking right-wingers now. Everything's woke. Even that storm we had at the weekend, it's a woke storm. Yeah, on you go. You're going out and driving it then. Going out and get hit with a tree. Fucking clowns. 114 mile an hour winds and it's woke. No, it's very real. But you can go out.
John, I was 2 minutes away from a wall falling on top of me.
Yeah, I didn't go out. I walked my dog round open spaces, that was it. Incredibly strong winds.
I'm up to the chemist, a pharmacy.
Oh yeah, the wall fell, I heard that, yeah, we discussed that numerous
times.
I
walked by the wall and when I came back out, coming back home, it was down.
Collapsed,
so
yeah.
In a minute,
but it's woke, Stephen, it's a woke storm. How the fuck can a storm be woke?
Yeah.
These people need their heads fucking swiveled, they really do. And I blame the likes of Musk. I used to like Musk to an extent. I used to think he was kind of zany, clearly autistic guy, nothing wrong with that. Obviously did a lot of good stuff with the rockets and whatnot, try to get humans off of Earth and onto Mars. He's still pursuing that. But this political side to him, that's opened my eyes up. I'm very much on the left-wing side of things when it comes to politics. I'm a sensible left-wing kind of person, though I'm not a fucking extremist on the other side, because they're every bit as bad. But this whole shit show since he's bought over Twitter and whatnot and influencing things and throwing Nazi salutes, I'm sorry, that's not fucking on. Plain and simple. So yeah, I don't know how I ended up on the discussion on Musk. I don't know how I ended up speaking about Musk. The woke storm, that's what it was. Yeah. And Denis Villeneuve during the actual pandemic. And I can't take it seriously. You're snubbing Denis Villeneuve of a much-deserved nomination, whether he wins it or not. It's ridiculous, man. It puts the whole thing, just puts it to shame. Yeah. It shows the absolute joke that is the process. Recency bias. Any movie that comes out after like May, before May, forget about it. Because anything that releases in like October forward, they're going to get nominated and going to gather momentum. Forget about it. I think the only one that shocked that was the Joker. I think it picked up some nominations, didn't it? And won. And people were criticising that as well, saying it was shite. It wasn't. But I digress. I've done a lot of digressing today, haven't I? That's been a long one, Steve. That's been an hour and 24 minutes. Wow. I don't think it's been entirely us talking. I think there's been a good 5 minutes of intro. And then try to sort audio out at the start. But you were still speaking. You were powering through, to be fair.
Yeah, not too bad.
I think we're done, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
What's your thoughts on the topics we touched on then? What did you make of the headline? The Hunt for Gollum. Is it something you're intrigued by? You think it can succeed? Can the original actors come back? Should they use de-aging technology, AI, to make it look seamless, organic? Share your thoughts down below about that, down below in the comment section. Thoughts on Spielberg blocking an E.T. sequel. And finally, the Academy Awards snubbing Denis Villeneuve for his brilliance in producing, not literally producing, but directing and giving the world Dune 2, a wondrous sci-fi epic with some fucking incredible adaptations and storytelling and performances from Chalamet, Butler, Batista, Brolin, the full shebang, Rebecca Ferguson. Doesn't matter because he doesn't get nominated. Zendaya, fucking sham is what I think. What's your thoughts on it? Share your thoughts down below in the comment section. All that's left to be said is thank you to the one comment we got. Thank you to anybody that's come in and watched. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get notifications straight to your eyes on the YouTube. Same thing over on Twitch, follow button, notifications button over there. And until the next time, all that's left to be said is bye-bye.